Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Britt, Kanawha, West Hancock Athletics Podcast. Dan Kroll here for episode 93. And this evening, I have Jay Hiscocks and Kevin Wilson, the voices of Eagle football, with me, along with Brent Moore, aka BC Moore. We're going to talk about the last couple West Hancock games, talk about the semifinal matchups in Class A, and then we'll talk briefly about all the other classes and some of our predictions for that as well. So thank you to these guys for coming on again. These are always some of our favorites to do. A lot of fun to look forward to in the fall at this time of the year with the playoffs. Before we get to that, I recognize my 15 sponsors. I have the Britt Food Center, Kelly Real Estate, Window World, Nick Schmidt, Katie's Salon and Tanning, Swenson's Do It Best Hardware Store in Britt, Triple B's Food Trucks, the Britt Car Truck Bike Tractor Night Cruise, Levi Don Trucking, Jeff and Becky Nielsen, Kathy and Doug Zool, Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, Miller and Sons Golf Cars, and Jay Hiscocks of State Farm Insurance. Like always, these guys, these companies, these individuals give money, and all goes to the Sanger Legacy Fund. We give scholarships for seniors. We help pay for our Hall of Fame, support anything in the athletics or activities or the school that needs funding. If you want to consider giving to the Legacy Fund, you can go to sangerstrong.com or let me know if you want to sponsor the podcast. You can message me. 50 episodes ago, talked to Steve Kelly, the head wrestling coach at Nyack, and his son Creighton is a stud player, number 36 for West Hancock right now. He's a junior. I always think it's funny that kid's probably going to run for 1,500 yards next year as a senior, and he has, I think, 14 carries for the season. That's just how loaded West Hancock is this year. So check out that video with Steve from 50 episodes ago. I'll have it linked to this post, this episode on Facebook. All right, let's get it started here real fast. I know we do this every time, but just in case people are popping in for the first time, we'll go Kevin, Jay, and then Brent. Tell them who you are, what you do, and then we'll get rolling with some West Hancock football. Go ahead, Kevin.
All right, thanks, Dan. I'm Kevin Wilson, the accountant at Original Saw. That's my day job. Friday nights, you can find me in the press box doing play-by-play for West Hancock football, and have coached girls basketball. Started out in boys basketball, coached girls basketball for the last 21 years at West Hancock, and that pretty much is me in a nutshell.
Mr. Hiscocks.
Married, a couple of adult kids, and a whole bunch of grandkids.
So. I bet. Mr. Hiscocks.
Well, I got to start off by saying that I eat lunch with Kevin on Wednesdays or Thursdays during the fall. I'm married to Bonnie, and Claire, our daughter Claire, is a sophomore at West Hancock. I coach basketball at West Hancock. Don't really have any other interesting tidbits to share this time. I enjoy fishing and watching the Hawkeyes and the Cubs.
And I like how the first thing you say is that you eat lunch with Kevin, and then you're like, and then I'm married to Bonnie. So that's priorities. So, yeah, and Mr. BC Moore himself. Tell everybody about you real quick.
Brent Moore, BC Moore Rankings publisher. I've published this website for approximately 22 years. Very interested in Iowa high school athletics and happy to be here.
You bet. And we'll get more into the BC Moore model here in a little bit. Always a lot of fun to get lost in the weeds there. So we did 2 episodes leading up to the first round and then after the first round. So let's real quick recap the second round. We beat Starmont on the road 49-10 in Arlington. What'd you guys think of that game? And then Brent, after that, how did West Hancock perform in that game? What'd you guys think about the game at Starmont in the second round?
It was a tight game, and I thought it was going to stay tight throughout. I think the turning point in the game, and I think Jay will agree with me, they had a punt that they shanked a little bit and give West Hancock short field position, but we were able to take it down and punch it in the end zone. And then I think it was the ensuing possession, or the kickoff, was kicked over the returners' heads, and they had to go back and get it. And they were pinned pretty deep in their own territory. And the end result was a strip sack for the second touchdown. And then I think we scored one more right after that, right before the half. But I think that 2 touchdowns in a short period of time really changed the tone of the game early. Because before that, I think the 2 teams, they were battling. And then when West Hancock was able to score twice, I think that changed the tone of the game and kind of got the stars off of their schedule a little bit, if you will, because they were run heavy. I think it was like 76-24, if I remember right. Jay can confirm that.
Yeah,
But they were about 50-50 past that game. Might even been more pass than run. And I think that got them off schedule and tipped the scales in favor of West Hancock pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would echo what Kevin said, that turning point with the shanked punt, and then just I think Mitchell had a long run, and then the strip sack for a score, and then the West Hancock got another 3 and out, and then I believe it was Kellen Smith had an 85-yard touchdown catch and reception and run for a touchdown. And I think a lot of times, and we've talked about it, West Hancock with this group and kind of the run they've been on these last 6 years, all these kids have been a part of really big playoff games. So they've got that big game experience. And sometimes when you run into a team that is kind of had an upstart season like Starmont, got a great tradition, but they had a great season this year. And sometimes when you get into those big games, if a couple things go against you, then it has a tendency to kind of snowball out of control. And that's kind of what it did for them. And the momentum was all in favor of West Hancock. And they knew, and credit to West Hancock and Coach Sanger and company, they know what to do with the momentum when they got it, and they know how to bury a team, and they were able to do that pretty quickly in that game. But Starmont had a great season. They were a great story all year long. Probably one of the best stories in Class A as far as the turnaround from 2-3 years ago to what they did this season.
And Brent, how did West Hancock perform in the model?
Yeah, West Hancock was a 13-point favorite going into the game. They won by 22. After the game, the computer does another calculation and thinks they should be a 14-point favorite if they were to play again at Wapsie Valley. So that's a good prediction and a good game by West Hancock.
Yep. And in the Starmont game, we won by 39. Do you remember what the spread was for that Starmont game? Can't remember exactly. What do you guys remember what we were favored by in the model? So like it's close to 20 maybe. I can't remember off the top of my head, but by 39.
I don't know.
The after the fact number is 21 points on a rematch.
So in that Starmont game, real quick here, air raid for West Hancock. Mitchell was 5 for 8 passing, 146 yards and 3 touchdowns. That 3-touchdown game by Mitchell was a tied Jim Deemer's school record for most touchdown passes in a playoff game. 2 to Kellen Smith, 1 to Zach Buchanan. We had 40 carries on the ground for 334 yards. And one thing I pointed out was Cale Zool had 10 carries. He was the only Eagle to have more than 10 carries in that game. So going into that quarterfinal game with Wapsie, which we knew would be more of a physical game, I'd say our boys were pretty fresh. And, a lot of times we get to this deep in the playoffs, and I think Nick Horseman in 07, he had 49 carries in the the quarterfinals against Garrigan. And then in the semis against Lawton, he had like 35 carries. It's good to have a balanced rushing attack and not have guys dinged up with too many carries. So, and then, Friday night, we went over to Wapsie Valley, about a 2-hour drive from Britt. I rode up with Rick and Jeff Zanger, had a good time, little road trip, and watched West Hancock beat Wapsie Valley 44-22. In my nerdiness, it was the only 44-22 game in school history. Thoughts on the game in Fairbank, fellas?
Go ahead, Jay.
I evenly matched game to start. Again, I think both teams kind of feeling each other out. I'll go back and I'll let Kevin kind of talk about the game and what he saw too. But I go back to how West Hancock finished the first half and then started the second half. We spoke about it kind of as it was going on. West Hancock was up, I believe, 10. I can't remember what the exact score was, but they're up a couple scores. They got the ball with 5.5 minutes to go before the half. And we kind of spoke about how important it is to close out halves, open it, hopefully score without leaving little time. And they were able to do that. Mitchell Smith really kind of took over on that drive, especially once they got past the 50 and they scored with less than a minute to go. And then, of course, Jackson Peterson with the big play of the night. He opens the second half up with a 90-yard kickoff return, and then it was smooth sailing from there. So, West Hancock, I thought they looked really good offensively. We looked pretty silly in the pregame. We were talking defense, and how good both teams were defensively. Thought it'd be a defensive struggle, but both teams just kind of zipped up and down the field the first 2 drives. So credit to the coaching staffs to come up with a really good plan against some tough defenses. Some guys I want to highlight, I know Kale Zool was huge, over 30 carries, I believe, and over 150 yards. You can get to the stats, Dan, but yeah, he was really tough. But three guys that have been really good defensively, and we haven't talked about this year a lot, is Creighton Kelly, Brady Bixel, and Luis Sandoval. I thought were Luis really good on the back end. He made a couple big tackles on plays where he was kind of the last line of defense, but Brady Bixel and Creighton Kelly have both been really, really good from their linebacker spots. I know sometimes they will move Brady out if they're running a little bit of 4-3 action, but both guys really good tacklers, and I thought they were really good again on Friday night. But yeah, an impressive win. Two programs that are just filled with tradition. And again, another thing we spoke about on the broadcast, there's probably not two other programs in Class A right now that have better resumes playoff wise as far as in program totality than West Hancock and Wapsie Valley. So it was a treat to go over there. And one other thing I want to shout out, because I know they listened to the podcast. Well, two of the first people we saw when we were greeted at Wapsie Valley, Dan, were complimentary of your podcast. So and they were first class over there up in the press box and helping us out with everything. So thank you to everybody over at Wapsie Valley.
Yeah, I think I would echo Jay's sentiment, and I just want to add a couple of things. I was doing the play-by-play, and I was standing next to the West Hancock coaches, and after we got that second, we had a 2-score lead, and went for two and could have probably stretched it. I don't remember what the score was at the time, but if we would have converted the 2-point conversion, it would have stretched it to a 3-score lead. And one of the coaches next door to me, I heard him commenting, says, "Man, we really need that," because they weren't comfortable with a 2-score lead against Wapsie Valley, and that says a lot about your opponent when you have a 2-score lead and you're not comfortable with it. I just want to have a little fun here and reiterate our. If you weren't watching that game and you have a chance to go back and watch it, if you're like Class A football in Iowa, there were three really, really good plays, and four actually really good plays in that game. One was the catch, the only completion that West Hancock had all night long, where Mitchell Smith rolled out and hit Zach Buchanan. Zach was horizontal to make the catch, and it really was an awesome play. And then Wapsie Valley, not to be outdone, Ian Bazinski caught a touchdown pass in the back corner of the end zone from Kanan Decker. And what a catch. I mean, it was double coverage. We both thought, that's not going to be happening. And out of nowhere, Bazinski was able to come up with the catch, out jumped. I don't even know who was on the defense right now. Jay might remember, but
I think it was Luis and Jackson Peterson, maybe. They were both in perfect coverage. It was just the kid made a great football play. Yeah. Hey, Kevin, real quick before you get to your next couple plays, if people are going to go back and try to watch these plays, I would recommend they watch the Wapsie Valley live stream of it, because the camera guy, me, was on a lot of those plays, and where our camera was set up, we weren't able to see some of those plays. So I apologize for that. I just want to give a preemptive apology for the people that are going right now and trying to tune into that to catch those highlights. Just you might want to just jump on that Wapsie Valley live stream. Their camera guy.
My dad was here yesterday for my boy's birthday party. Happy birthday today to my sons, by the way. But it's playoff football time, so they're up playing their iPads. But my dad was like, "Oh, that catch, that by Buchanan, you couldn't see it because of the wall got in the way." And I said, they were lucky to be in the press box. That thing was like a pack of gum. There was not a lot of room for anybody. So it was small little press box for such a nice little Class A stadium, but there wasn't a lot of room up there. I
did see that somebody on, I think Zach's mom posted it on Facebook. I think KWWL or somebody was at the game, and they got a great shot of that catch. And then before Kevin moves on, sorry Kevin, but
that's all right.
Eric Burt was at the game. He does a lot of edits. He's Max Burt's dad. If you remember Max Burt, Newman football, basketball, and baseball, started playing baseball at Iowa. He was there, and he's doing some film edits that are really, really cool, set to music, and he got a pretty cool shot of Zach's catch too, because Zach was stretched out horizontally, and it was a heck of a catch. I was bummed out that I missed that one on camera. But Kevin, go on. Let him know about the other play that I missed on camera.
Well, yeah, I gotta tell you, this happens every once in a while. You know, Jay, if he had an opportunity to throw me under the bus, he would, because I'm surprised he hasn't told everybody on a podcast about me falling off the still trying to call a touchdown. But
he has. That was a couple years ago. He told that one already. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, see, my memory isn't that great, but Jay's messing with something on the computer or down below, and this play happens, and he comes up and he pops up and he goes, What did I miss? What did I miss?" It was kind of funny. It wasn't funny if you were watching from home, but anyway, the last play that I was going to talk about, Jackson Peterson's kickoff return to start the second half. That was, like Jay said, that was a backbreaker. We thought that would be a crucial drive. They scored right before half, and then we talked coming out of the halftime how important that drive was for both teams, for Wapsie to get a stop and for West Hancock to try to get something on the board, or at least flip the field position. And then Jackson Peterson comes out the second half and just throws all that out the window, because he goes 90 yards for a touchdown on the opening second half kickoff. And then there was a play where I was almost speechless trying to call it. It was a pass play. I think that was on that was the only turnover of the game, if I remember right. West Hancock ended up with the ball, and Wapsie, he scrambled, he threw the ball. They had the first down. He should have been sacked, or I thought for sure he was going to get sacked, and somehow Decker got out of it, scrambled for the first down, and somehow or another, it was on the far side. We didn't see what happened, but the ball popped out, and West Hancock ended up with the ball. And those 3 or 4 plays were really crucial plays in that game that could have, if any of those go the other way, that game might be a whole lot closer, or might even be a different result. So that's my recollection and things that I'll take away from that game.
And Jackson's kickoff return, I was on the small bleacher. If you're watching on the live stream on the left, I was with Jake Zool, Kane Zool, Jay Johnson, JT Merriam, a couple other guys. And we had the perfect angle on that. There were 3 Wapsie Valley guys pretty much in front of Jackson. And we were like, oh, that's not going anywhere. And then he bounced out. We had the great angle to see, like, it was dead to right at about the 30-ish yard line. And he made a play. So, and Brent told me before we recorded, he watched the entire game. So we've made a West Hancock fan out of BC Moore. So I watched the whole thing. It was great. And then I got an email from you about 10 minutes after the game was over. I checked my phone, still at the stadium, or whenever it was. So yeah. And then Brent, you said West Hancock overperformed in the model. So that's always good to see.
13-point favorite, and won by 22. I noticed when West Hancock made their 2-point conversions, it seemed to put a little pressure on too. I thought that was important.
Yeah, we had a 2-possession lead pretty quick in the game. Got up by 10, and that changes your play calling, that's for sure. All right, I just shared my screen here. Here was the other scores for Class A. I want to talk East Buck St. Ansgar last here. Woodbury Central had no problems with low mag. They went from possibly could have lost to MMCRU on that last second touchdown the week before to running clock against Logan Magnolia to go to the Dome. Madrid beat ACGC 21-14, and then East Buck over St. Ansgar. That East Buck made me look good in the car on the way up there. We're talking predictions, and I said I'm a Jay Hiscocks believer of being an East Buck believer. And I said, I think East Buck takes St. Ansgar tonight. And they kind of looked at me. And I was like, I think they get it done. So they did. 30-16. It was 30-8 pretty much towards the end, and St. Ansgar scored. What'd you guys think about the other games in Class A?
Go for it.
Go ahead, Jay.
Well, I told you to go for it. I was.
Okay. I will.
Yeah, go for it.
I really thought, Jay and I talked a little bit, and he kind of thought I was crazy, but I really thought, given the fact that both the St. Ansgar and East Buchanan are primarily running teams, I thought that game would be low scoring. I just thought that they would run all over each other and not actually get it in the end zone, spend all their time playing between the 20s. But so I was a bit surprised that, especially that it was as lopsided towards East Buchanan as it was. That one really kind of surprised me. Woodbury Central and Logan Magnolia, Woodbury Central's been destroying people all season long, putting up a ton of points on offense. That one really didn't surprise me a whole lot. And I thought, and I can't remember, BC can probably chime in on that. I thought the Madrid easy for me to say, ACGC, that had a close line on it, if my memory serves me correct. And I really didn't know who to pick in that one. Went with Madrid just because, but that one turned out pretty close to what I thought it might be. I figured one of them was going to have a touchdown over the other, and it turns out that was correct. So
yeah, not surprised, like Kevin said, in that Madrid ACGC game. I think a lot of people figured that was more than likely going to be a one-score game, and Madrid able to pull it out. And I haven't been able to watch any of these games yet. I was gone this weekend and just got home, but the one game I'm really interested to look into is that Woodbury Central Logan Magnolia game, just because of what it looks like Woodbury Central did defensively to Logan Magnolia, and Logan Magnolia being a heavy run team. Logan Magnolia, they've got a Division I recruit on their offensive line, so a lot of similarities of what you're going to see in the semifinal game. Some forecasting there as East Buchanan and Woodbury will go up against each other, and East Buck has got their own D1 lineman as well. But yeah, Woodbury Central able to shut down Logan Magnolia. I know Logan, I think they threw the ball 7 times and they threw 2 picks. And Woodbury got it rolling, and Drew Klender, he's a stud at quarterback. So looking forward to rewatching that game to see how that played out. And then that East Buck St. Ansgar game, Dan, like I said, I've been on that East Buck train since we played them in the semis a couple years ago. The Thurn kid is a stud, and we'll talk about him a little bit more when we preview these semifinal games. But one thing of note in that St. Ansgar game, everybody going into it, and I myself too, I assumed we were going to see both teams probably run the ball 40 times in that game. I noticed that St. Ansgar had 19 pass attempts. So from everything that I read and seen, stat-wise, it sounded like East Buck had good game control. I don't know if they dominated the game, but they controlled that game throughout, from just kind of hearing the scores come in as we were doing our own broadcast. And to see St. Ansgar throw the ball 19 times, that makes you think that they kind of had to go deep in their playbook, deeper than they wanted to go, to try to get a victory in that one. So it makes for some really interesting semifinal matchups, I'll tell you that. And I'm excited to talk about those here in a little bit.
When St. Ansgar won the state title in 2011, I'm not sure they passed it 19 times that entire season. So they can do it. They're more than capable this year than they have been in years past, but that's uncharacteristic for them. Brent, how'd these scores look and hold up in your model?
Woodbury Central was a 21-point favorite. They won by 35. Madrid and ACGC was the close game. Madrid was a 4-point favorite as the road team. They won by 7. And then East Buchanan had the upset. They were a 11-point underdog, and they won it by 14. So quite a big change there.
East Buck, I think, Brent, is they might be the team that kind of throws a little bit of a wrinkle in your computer model, just because you can't factor in injuries. And I think that, with them losing, who'd they lose? Who was their first loss to? It was a Sumner Fred, right?
Yes, I believe so.
They lost to a really good team, but then that loss to Starmont being a bad loss, but there was some mitigating factors going into that one that it wasn't the true East Buck team that you're seeing, the full strength squad that you're seeing right now.
That Starmont game especially is just kind of a moot point at this point of the season. Let's jump to the other classes here and talk scores and some predictions, and then we'll get to Class A, which is our focus. Class 5A, if you can see on the left side of the screen, there were some pretty crazy scores in the quarterfinals. Southeast Polk beat Cedar Falls 21-20, and we heard that Cedar Falls went for 2 at the end and didn't get it. Ankeny beat Dowling. I'm sure this saddens most people around the state that the power parochial school is out, but Ankeny won 14-7. The 4 and 5 going into the playoff West Des Moines Valley team is now in the semis with a 20-7 win over Waukee, and Centennial beat Bettendorf 41-14. Brent, did any of these scores mess up your model, or did they surprise the model?
Yeah, there's two upsets there. Dowling was a 17-point favorite, lost by 7. And the other one was Waukee and Valley. Computer had it as a 5-point favorite for Waukee, and then Valley ended up winning by 13.
It's take out Ankeny Centennial. No team in 5A scored more than 21 points. That also stood out to me a little bit. So 4A, we'll do a bunch of these scores, then we'll go down to the semi pods, the matchups. Western Dubuque beat North Scott 21-7. Lewis Central beat ADM 32-21. Bondurant Farrar and Coach Zach Fons beat Glenwood 31-21. And then North Polk beat Xavier 17-14. What do you guys think of 4A? And if you need to chime in on 5A, go ahead too.
I'll let Kevin chime in on 4A. I want to go back to 5A, and the thing that I'll mention, one, you got all Des Moines Metro schools in the Final Four again. I was kind of pulling for somebody from the east side, since I grew up near the Quad Cities on the Illinois side. I was kind of hoping Bettendorf could pull it off. But I want to one note, Valley, for all you coaches and players out there and fans who can kind of panic, have a tendency to panic early. You know what Valley's record was after week 4?
0-4.
0-4.
Yeah.
And they're going to play in the Final Four on Thursday or Friday, whenever they play.
Kevin, any thoughts on 4A, 5A?
That 4A bracket, I think that the 4 teams that are left, 3 of the 4 teams, I kind of been following a little bit this year. That North Polk and Xavier game, I'm not sure what the line was on that. VC might be able to get us up to speed on that. But that game, I would love to go back and be able to watch that game just because, 1, it was close, and 2, Xavier is a team that is in the playoffs a lot and experienced. And I think that game I don't know the first thing about it. I haven't read any box scores or anything, but that's a game I'm interested in going back and watching.
Brent, what about 4A?
Yeah, North Polk was a 7-point favorite, ended up winning by 3, pretty tight. Western Dubuque, 11-point favorite, won by 14. Bondurant Farrar, 11-point favorite, won by 10. And Lewis Central was a 7-point favorite, won by 11. So no upsets there.
Computer knows its stuff in 4A.
Yeah, congrats to Coach Fons. I coached with him at Central College. He was at Ottumwa for a while and then went over to Bondurant and doing good things over there. So I was happy to see that for him. Class 3A, Creston beat Webster City 50-27. Then some crazy scores the rest of the way in 3A. Solon beat West Delaware 36-35. Williamsburg beat Mount Vernon 38-35. And Heelan beat Sioux Center 27-26 in 3 overtimes. The scores were coming in on the car ride home, and we're like, that's some fun football in Class 3A. What'd you guys see there?
Well, the one that I was most excited about, and it's a shame those teams had to play in the quarterfinals, was Williamsburg and Mount Vernon, and that lived up to the hype. It sounds like Williamsburg was my pick from the start of the year to win it all in 3A. I think 3A is loaded this year. Don't be surprised if anybody wins it. Obviously, you got a triple overtime game in there that had to be crazy. And then my sister, she was texting me the updates on the Solon game. Her and her family live in Solon, and my nephew was on their JV team. And it sounds like Solon kind of hung on for dear life in that one. And then the game that was the biggest blowout, when I was going through and reading the scores as we were doing our game, Webster City was up 19-0 in that football game to start the game, and then lost 50-27. But yeah, 3A has been kind of wild this year. A lot of really good football teams, and it should make for some pretty exciting semifinal games.
Mm-hmm.
Brent?
Yeah, 3A had a lot of coin flip games. Solon was an 8-point favorite, won by 1. Williamsburg, 2-point favorite, won by 3. Heelan was a 5-point underdog, won by 1. Creston I had as a 1-point favorite, won by 23. Webster City looked really strong in the second half.
Then 2A, Central Line, George Little Rock takes it to Carroll Kemper, 48-27. I was a little surprised the Van Meter PCA score was as close as it was, but yes and no, I guess. 31-21 Van Meter. Spirit Lake beating West Lyon 20-19, kind of was stood out a little bit. And then Monticello beat Mediapolis 34-28. What do you guys think about 2A?
That West Lyon score was a surprise. We listened to some of the Radio Iowa stuff on the way home. If I heard correctly, one of those two teams, and I can't remember if it was West Lyon or Spirit Lake, one of them, I don't think they scored on offense. I think all their touchdowns. There was 2 pick sixes in that game, and I can't remember which team had them off the top of my head. But that was a crazy back and forth game. And that, if my memory serves me correct, I believe Central Line and George Lorock trailed Kemper at one point in that game because it was a real close game, and then they had a huge late game surge in points because I was thinking it was
that was a tight game for a while, Kevin.
Yeah, and it was like 3 quarters a tight game if I'm not mistaken, from what I've heard anyway. I don't know that for a fact, but and then Central Line just pulled away at the end, so I'm not sure what happened there, but.
Brent, what the model show you?
Yeah, these were all kind of clear favorite games. Central Lyon was favored by 22. They won by 21. West Lyon was favored by 13. This is an upset. Spirit Lake won by 1. Monticello, 15-point favorite, won by 6. And finally, Van Meter was favored by 31, won by 10. So a little bit of an underperformance there.
Yeah, I was thinking I'm down this area. Van Meter's in our conference, and they're the school,
Dan, do you think that Van Meter score being closer is just a kind of a symptom of them jumping from 1A to 2A? I know we're going to see the complete opposite when we get to the 1A scores with what Grundy Center did, but you think that's maybe just the jump up in competition as far as the bigger schools?
Very likely. Yeah, I would totally agree there. Van Meter has like 90 kids out for football or something like that. I was talking to our coach who he's like, we have 50, and we're, that's not bad for a small 2A school at I-35, but he goes, these guys can have a full freshman team, a full JV team, obviously a full varsity team, and he goes, their backups are just as good as some of our, they could be starting at a lot of other schools. So yeah, I mean, the competition's a lot tighter the higher classes you go, but they're just a machine right now. So that did surprise me a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if they win the whole thing. I think they have to get through Central Line to do that, obviously, and that'll be a very, very big challenge for them, but never know. High school football with high school kids, you never know what's going to happen. 1A, Grundy and Dyke played in week 1 with Grundy winning that game 7-6. They blocked the Dyke New Hartford extra point towards the end of the game to win by 1. I was thinking this would be a good game. Talked to Doug Eisman. He goes, oh, the place is packed. People are pretty excited. They're 15 minutes away, and Grundy took it to them 40-0. That surprised me a little bit. I figured Grundy would win, but I didn't think 40-0. Underwood, 43 over OABCIG 8. Columbus Catholic beat Sumner Fredericksburg 35-14. And MFL, home of Bob and Linda Sanger, beat Regina 22-7. And again, everyone was deeply saddened that Regina will not be in the Dome this year, I'm sure. So what'd you guys see from the 1A scores that popped out a little bit?
The Grundy score, I thought that was a statement win for Grundy Center. Just to do what they did to him is being a rivalry game that's a rematch in the playoffs. My guess is Coach Zajac and then Coach Conger had a really good game plan defensively going into that one. And Grundy Center looks like they are playing really, really good football at the right time again. And I don't want to discredit the other teams, but Grundy Center and Underwood, looking forward to that matchup. Columbus Catholic, I'll let Kevin talk about them. They've just been a team that's kind of been on the rise all year long. They gave a close challenge to Grundy Center earlier in the season. And then MFL Marmac, good to see them get to the Dome. I know they had a pretty successful basketball season last year. They've got a lot of really good athletes in that school district right now. So they are definitely taking advantage of having the Jimmies and Joes running around the hallways right now.
Yeah, Marmac has been knocking on the door for the last couple of years. They've had some good teams, and to see them get to the semis and have a chance. See, they match up with Underwood, if I'm not mistaken, in the first round, and that'll be a tough game for them. I think Underwood. I think Jay touched on it. Grundy Center and Underwood are probably a step better than everybody right now. Or at least it would appear that way on paper. I watched the first time when Columbus Catholic and Grundy Center played, and that was a really good game. Columbus had their chances in that game to knock off Grundy. That was probably first third of the season when those two met, and Grundy was a touchdown winner. Be interesting to see what happens on a neutral field, and Grundy Center's been in the Dome a lot, so playing in the Dome, I know Columbus is right there, but the Dome, if you wanted to have that Dome stigma, isn't there for Grundy Center like it would be for some of those teams that have to travel a ways away and play someone that's local to that area. So I think Class A, there's a lot of parity in those Final Four, but I do think that Grundy Center and Underwood are just a half step better than everybody there.
Brent, how'd the numbers compare to the model?
Yeah, Underwood was a 31-point favorite, won by 35. The other three games were relatively close on predictions and didn't end up there. Columbus was a 3-point favorite, won by 21. MFL Marmac was a 1-point favorite, won by 15. And Grundy Center, 5-point favorite, won by 40. I noticed the model had Grundy Center relatively low compared to the polls all year, but now the model has them right at number 2. So caught up.
And again, what was you are 79% correct on quarterfinal games. We were talking about that before we hit record. You said you average about 80% accuracy, even if it's a 1-point game, and that's held true pretty much through the brackets here. Real quick here, 8th player, Winfield Mount Union beats Don Bosco 34-29. I was interested in Bedford and Lennox because that's kind of down here in my neck of the woods. They do wrestling together. They're kind of rivals otherwise. Bedford beat Lennox 36-24. Garrigan of Algona beats Caminita 26-16. And Gladbrook Rhinebeck beats Clarksville 32-20. I know the superintendent over there, so I was glad to see Gladbrook get in. What'd you guys think about 8-man?
I watched the Garrigan game because it was played Thursday night. Garrigan was down 16-14 in that game and played really well defensively, I thought, in the second half to take control of that game. And Garrigan's got a lot of good athletes on their team. They got a lot of good athletes in the school right now. I think if they were 11-man right now, Dan, I think they'd be a pretty good 11-man team as well. But yeah, good to see them get back down to the Dome. We'll see what they can do as they got a uphill battle. Well, they got a major challenge, we'll say, going against Winfield Mount Union. But we did hear, we were sitting next to, oh gosh, is it Taylor from K-Sway or K-Way?
Taylor Nitz.
Yeah, Taylor Nitz. He was at that Winfield Mount Union game, and Cam Buffington, the star player for Winfield Mount Union, was kind of dinged up in that game. So he wasn't 100% for Don Bosco. So if he's not 100%, that's going to help Bishop Garrigan's chances quite a bit because he's a pretty special player. He's committed to go to the University of Iowa and play football. And then that Bedford and Gladbrook game should be a heck of a matchup. I'm not sure what the computers say, but I know both Kevin and I think that Gladbrook's probably the favorite in that semifinal.
The Gladbrook Rhinebeck, this is their first time back to the Dome since they became an 8-man team. Right before they became 8-man, they had a really good run, an 11-man. I believe they won a championship, if I'm not mistaken.
2015, 2016, they won Class A titles.
Yep. Yeah. And this is their first time back in the Dome since they went to 8-man, and they seem to really be clicking right now. I think they could be a tough out.
I noticed the scores for 8-man football. That's relatively low scoring. Brent, what it looked like based on your model?
Yeah, Garrigan was the upset. They were a 9-point underdog, won by 10. Bedford was a 9-point favorite, won by 12. Gladbrook Rhinebeck, 7-point favorite, won by 12. And Winfield Mount Union, 16-point favorite, won by 5. Little underperformance there.
But I'm just going to touch real quickly on something that BC just said. That Gladbrook Rhinebeck and Clarksville game, they met in the regular season, and I believe that was Gladbrook Rhinebeck's only loss was to Clarksville. And I think that was a 2-point game, if my memory serves me right. Do we know what the line was or what the computer was predicting on the first matchup between those two?
I could do
I'm
some
guessing Brent
research.
knows how to find that.
Well,
Well,
was it played in like the first 2 or 3 weeks?
I
uh,
don't. I
three,
can't say for
4,
sure.
5, maybe.
I'm
Yeah.
looking. I've got it pulled up here right now. It was week 7 is when they played.
Oh, really?
Okay.
So
I thought it was earlier than that. Yep. So I just scrolled up to the semifinals here while Jay's looking at stuff. Starting with 8-man, they play Wednesday at 10-1. Garrigan, Winfield, Mount Union, Gladbrook, and Bedford. Who do you guys have? And then Brent will talk about the spreads for those.
Well, I went with the hometown favorite, so to speak. Just down the road from where I grew up. I went with Gladbrook Rhinebeck in that first one, and I went with the computer and went with Winfield Mount Union in the second.
ditto. I'll make it quick. Going back, it looks like Gladbrook was an 11-point favorite when they lost to Clarksville, if I'm looking at it right. So, but yeah, same as Kevin. I'm going to say Winfield Mount Union, especially if they're fully healthy, and then Gladbrook to meet in the championship game.
Yep, I agree. Brent, what are the spreads looking like for that?
Yeah, computer model has Bedford by 11, Winfield Mount Union by 12.
And if you've been listening the last 10 minutes, 80% of the games, Brent was saying they're an 11-point favorite. They won by 13. So listen to the computer to a degree. Obviously, you're dealing with high school kids, and you never know, but it still just blows my mind how accurate that is. So we're going to talk A in a minute here. So I'm going to scroll down. You can see on the right side, Class 4A. Look at the records: 9-2, 9-2, 9-2, 10-1. I texted these guys earlier in the week and I said there was only like 11 undefeated teams from 5A through A left in the quarterfinals. Usually there's 3 undefeated teams and a team with 1 loss per class. This year there's a lot of parity throughout a lot of these classes. North Polk plays the 4 o'clock game against Lewis Central, and Bondurant Farrar plays Western Dubuque at 7. Who do you guys have in these 2 games?
I'm
I'm
going to
gonna
go Lewis Central and Western. Oh, sorry, Kevin.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna say Lewis Central and Western Dubuque. Bondurant Farrar really banged up injury wise right now. Some key guys. So if they are able to come back and play, I would maybe think about switching my pick, but I'm going to stick with Lewis Central and Western Dubuque to get it done.
I'm going to agree with Jay. Just tradition on both of those 2 teams. Lewis Central, we know how tough they've been, especially the last few years. And Western Dubuque has a lot of tradition on their side. I would go with them. I see the computer's got them real close games.
Brent, what are those spreads for 4A?
Yeah, these are both 2-point games. And another thing to talk about here is the total spread. Oh, sorry, one other thing. All these teams are 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the difference between the number 1 team and the number 4 team is only 2 points. So these are coin flip games, and most likely we're going to have a coin flip game in the next round too.
Yeah, and that's where I'm just gonna be that guy, and I'm going North Polk and Bondurant. And you guys know me; it's nothing fancier. I haven't watched film or studied these teams. I'm pulling for Coach Fonts and Bondurant, and then I just kind of a gut feeling with North Polk, but I've been wrong before. But I'm gonna just change it up on you a little bit.
So according to Brent's computer, those West Hancock fans that are going to be down there watching the Eagles, they may want to go grab a bite to eat after our game and then stick around Cedar Falls and come back for the evening session to see a couple of really good football games.
If anyone wants to do parent-teacher conferences for me that night, I'd like to do the same. So we'll see. Friday the 10th, we have Class 1A. 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock, we have Columbus Catholic Waterloo 9-2 versus Grundy. That's a rematch, like we said. And then MFL Marmac at 10-1 versus Underwood at 10-1. I forgot to mention this when we were talking quarterfinal scores, but MFL is where Bob and Linda Sanger both grew up. And so in the car on the way home from Wapsie, that score came on, or I read the score off my phone, and can't remember if it was Rick or Jeff said, "Oh, Dad would be pretty happy right now to see MFL finally get it done." So as much as I'd love to see MFL win that game, I still think Underwood's just a better football team. And then as much as it's difficult to beat a team twice in a season, I still think, especially seeing the Grundy Dyke score, I still think Grundy Center's getting it done to go to their 5th consecutive championship game, and this time in Class 1A. So what do you guys think for 1A?
Got to go with the hometown Spartans, and then got them playing Underwood in the championship.
Yeah, I think Grundy Center as well. Usually, when a team plays a team for the second time, and you kind of alluded to that, Dan, it's kind of scary to try to beat a team twice, but Grundy Center took care of business in beating a team twice last round. I'm big believers in Coach Zajac and Coach Conger and what they do. And then I think Dome experience will have play a big role in that game. A lot of those kids for Grundy Center, a lot of kids were playing in that championship game last year against West Hancock. So I'll take Grundy Center in that. And then I think Underwood's just going to be too much for MFL Marmac, and that's going to set up a really, really good championship game in a couple weeks.
Yep. Brent, what are the computers showing you?
Yeah, Grundy Center is listed as a 9-point favorite. Underwood is a 19-point favorite. One comment on that game is MFL Marmac is one corner of the state. Underwood is kind of the other corner. So the connections between all these teams might be a bit weak. So we'll see.
Yeah. Class 5A, we have 6-5 Valley against 11-0 Southeast Polk. Which that looks like a colossal mismatch, but Southeast Polk was 2 yards away from not being in the Dome this year. Cedar Falls went for 2, didn't get it. And then the 7 o'clock game, Ankeny Centennial 7-4 versus Ankeny 8-3. I don't know the spread on the computer, but that's Ankeny Centennial and Ankeny. I think you throw any of the numbers out the window on that one. What do you guys think about Class 5A?
So Centennial, looking at it, they lost by 1 to Ankeny in week 1 of the season. So yeah, I'll go ahead and just flip a coin. Okay, yep, I'll take Ankeny to win that one. And then Southeast Polk and Valley. Again, anytime you're playing a team a second time around makes it difficult. And with what Valley's done starting the season 0-4, they have not played Southeast Polk this year. And so that's interesting to me. Especially the Valley coming in and winning 6 of their last 7 games. But I'm going to stick with Southeast Polk in that one. But 5A is always interesting, man. It seems like you got a lot of close games during the regular season, and it always seems like when there's rematches, they go the other way in the playoffs, opposite of what they did in the regular season.
Yep, and I'm going Southeast Polk and Ankeny as well. Brent, what's the computer showing you?
Southeast Polk, 16-point favorite, and the computer model likes Centennial by 10 points. I'm noticing that Centennial played both Southeast Polk and Dowling quite a bit better than Ankeny did. So we'll see.
Again, when you got that type of a rival, it's just anything could happen. So it'd be interesting. Class 3A on the right there by Kevin. Bishop Heelan at 10-1 against Crescent at 11-0. And then the 7 o'clock game on Saturday. We skipped 2A. We'll go up to that. I just noticed that. Williamsburg 10-1 against Solon 10-1. What do you guys look like? What do you like for 3A?
Well, I think Creston's been impressive all season long. I don't see them not getting to the Dome just because of the way they played, and I think they've pretty much. If I'm not mistaken, I think are they number 1 in the computer model?
3.
Okay. I was thinking they were 1 for some reason. That Williamsburg Solon game, I'm going to be like Jay was on that Ankeny Centennial and Ankeny game. I think you flip a coin there. And I do think that the winner of that game between Solon and Williamsburg, if they get through there unscathed and get everybody healthy, I do think that's probably the team to beat, whoever comes out of that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Creston in that first game, and then Williamsburg Solon. Solon handed Williamsburg their only loss of the regular season. Solon beat them by 7. I will say this: I will be rooting for Solon and the Spartans. I actually think I might have some Solon gear laying around here, but I I'll pick Williamsburg because that's who that was my pick to start the year. I thought they were going to be the team to beat in 3A, so I'm going to stick with Williamsburg, but I'll be rooting for Solon.
Yep, I have Williamsburg.
There's your bulletin board material, Dan.
Yep, there you go. Tick somebody off tonight. Yep. Brent, what's it looking like on your end?
Williamsburg is listed as an 8-point favorite. Creston, they were number one in kind of the second half of the regular season, but the computer has them 3 now. They are 8.5-point favorite.
All right. 2A. Missed that earlier. We have the 10 o'clock game, 1 o'clock games on Saturday, the 11th. Monticello at 10-1 against Van Meter, 11-0. And then the 1 o'clock game is Spirit Lake at 10-1 versus CLGLR at 11-0. I'll just very quickly say I think it's Van Meter and Central Lyon meeting up in the finals. Monticello's quarterback just broke the all-time yardage for passing and rushing record, I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Van Meter's been in the Dome, won a lot of titles lately. So is Central Lyon. So I'm going with the experience factor. I'm going with those two. What do you guys think?
I really like these matchups. I think they'll be close games. I know the computer doesn't agree with me on any of that. Central Lyon, George Little Rock, on paper and everything, they should dominate Spirit Lake. But then we just saw what Spirit Lake did with West Lyon, and I know Central Lyon and West Lyon played a 7-0 game not all that long ago. So, I really like this class for competitiveness. I think it'll be closer than what the computer thinks. I'm going to go with Van Meter and Central Lyon, but I think they'll be closer games than what everybody thinks.
I would agree. I think both games are going to be closer than what you think. In talking with actually Kevin's son Brady, Spirit Lake is better than what people thought. I know some people were surprised they won the quarterfinals, but they've been pretty impressive. And Central Lyon, George Little Rock, they are a machine. They've got a couple other kids that are going to Iowa, Monticello, Preston Reese. That's the quarterback, plays linebacker too. He's committed to the University of Iowa. So a lot of talent on the field in these games. I think Van Meter, Monticello ends up being a very close football game. I'll probably be wrong. And then I think Central Lyon, George Little Rock is just a little too much for Spirit Lake. And then, like we always say, both those teams on the right side, their dome experience is a big factor in those teams advancing. One other quick note, I want to go back to 3A real quick, Dan, and I want to give Creston some love because, and I had this written down in prepping for this. Creston this year, undefeated. They have 2 wins over Harlan and a win over Lewis Central. So that is one heck of a resume as far as beating really good football teams this year and just really good programs of the past. So yeah, they beat Lewis Central earlier in the year, and then they beat Harlan twice, once in the regular season, once in the playoffs. So I want to give a shout out to Creston and the season that they're having.
Yep, they're kind of down here in our neck of the woods. I've been rooting for them all year. Brent, what the computer show for 2A?
Yeah, this is big favorites. Van Meter by 25 and Central Lyon by 23. If the underdog wins, it will be an upset.
All right, fellas, let's go to what we're real excited about. Class A, Thursday the 9th, so 4 days from now. 10 o'clock game is Madrid, West Hancock. The 1 o'clock game is East Buck and Woodbury Central. I'm going to start with the 1 o'clock game. Woodbury Central, just for some historical fun here. Woodbury Central's in their 14th playoff appearance. They have an 18-12 record now with this year's 3 playoff wins. They won a state championship in Class 1A in 1980, made the semis in 79. 06, 07, 09, they lost in the first round. 2010, West Hancock went over there and beat them 28-22. I believe we were down 22-6 or something like that in that game and came back and won. 2011, they lost in the second round to West Hancock 56-12. My brother's North Iowa team lost to them 36-0 that season in the first round. 2012, they again had to play West Hancock. We beat them 37-20 in Britt before we lost in the second round to Akron. Made the quarters in the first round in 2014 and 15. Then they had a little bit of a lull where they didn't make the playoffs. In 2019, they made it all the way to the semis, lost to West Hancock. They're kind of tired of seeing us by that point. We beat them 49-20. And then they missed the playoffs in 2020. And then the last 2 years they've been in the semis and lost to Grundy Center 28-7 and 49-20 last year. So 3 of the last 4 years they've been in the dome. So you would say they have that dome experience, but so does East Buck. But they haven't had a close game in the dome in those 3 losses. East Buchanan is in their 21st playoff appearance. They have a 16-20 record. They've lost in the first round a lot of times here: 77, 86, 90, 94, 97, 98, 01, 02, 03, 04, 09, 2015, 16, and 17. They made it to the quarters in 1991, 08, and 22. And then this is their 4th semifinal appearance: 1989, 96, 21, and now 23. In 2021, West Hancock beat them 37-0. Just some fun historical background. This is the 1 versus 4 matchup. What's your guys' thoughts on East Buck versus Woodbury in the other semifinal opposite West Hancock and Madrid?
I am really, really excited about this football game. I know in texting our little group text, I think 2 of the best football players, well, I mean, a lot of really good football players, but 2 guys that I just love to watch. Drew Klunder, the quarterback for Woodbury Central. He's going to Southwest Minnesota State next year. And there's been a Klunder at quarterback for Woodbury Central for like the last 6 or 7 years. His brother was the quarterback before him. But he's been a stud. And what Woodbury Central does and how they like to throw it all over the yard, and then what East Buck does, 2 contrasting styles. East Buck wants to run it down your throat. They run a lot of stuff really similar to what West Hancock does. They've got a offensive lineman committed to the University of Iowa, and Cody Fox, the last offensive lineman from East Buck that went on to play Division I, won an Outland Trophy. You guys remember who that was? Anyone?
Robert Gallery.
You are correct. But yeah, the thing with East Buck, and I was talking with Dan about this, Tanner Thurn, fullback for them. He started since his freshman year. He's the leading tackler, leading rusher, just a stud of a football player. I think he's a Tate Hagen starter pack for all the West Hancock fans that are still watching the podcast at this point. He's a lot like Tate. He's the leader of their football team. Both of these teams, because of the 2 leaders that they have in Klunder and Thurn, are going to be tough to kill. So whoever earns their spot in the championship is going to deserve it. I will predict East Buck to win it, since I've been on that East Buck train since I know when we shut them out, 3 years ago now in the semifinals. I was still just impressed with what they had. And I remember thinking, man, this Thurn kid's only a sophomore playing in the semifinals. He's a stud. This Bowers kid that hit a couple big plays against us, he's a stud. And the Fox kid, he's a stud. And they're all seniors this year. So I'm going to continue on that East Buck train and predict that they will beat Woodbury Central in what I think is going to be an epic semifinal matchup at 1 o'clock after our game.
Kevin?
I'm kind of torn. I think Jay's hit it on the head. This is going to be an exciting game. I think it's going to be a matchup of, and I haven't really looked, but I think whoever can stop the other team consistently will win that game. I think it comes down to defense in this one. Woodbury Central going to have to stop that wing T rushing game. And if they can do that and then be successful passing the ball, I think they have a chance to win it. This could be one of those games. I'm going to go, just because I'm a traditionalist and like to see people run the ball, I'm going to go with East Buck. But Woodbury Central could very well. There's a little bit like Grundy Center. They've been there a lot. And last year when we went in there, one of the reasons I think that Grundy Center, not to take away any talent, one of the things that I think motivated Grundy Center is they just were tired of losing in the Unidome, and especially to the same team over and over again. And East Buck's been there, Woodbury Central's been there, which both of those could have that same motivation. So yeah, I think it could go either way, but I would give the edge to East Buck.
The way I'm envisioning this game is Woodbury's a pass-happy team. East Buck wants to run it every play if they could. If East Buck can stop the passing, get some 3 and outs, they're going to have some 8-minute drives running the ball. And then by the time Woodbury Central gets the ball back, they've had no chance to get into an offensive rhythm. It could be a very strange game where like East Buck has 76 plays from scrimmage and Woodbury Central has 27, one of those type of games. So if they can slow down that passing attack and then sustain some drives, kind of the old Bob Sanger football where, you get some stops on defense and you just don't let the other team get the ball back in more than a couple possessions. So I'm also going with East Buck, but I don't study film like you guys do and Brady does and some of those guys. So I don't know what they're like against passing teams on defense. But I just feel like East Buck's on a roll and momentum's a big deal in high school football.
Dan, one other thing I want to add to that game, and I talked about it a little bit when we were going over the quarterfinal games. Woodbury Central did shut down a power run team in Logan Magnolia last round. So just keep that in the back of your mind. But the other thing I want to say as far as prediction wise, and you kind of hit it on the head, Dan, if East Buck can control the game from a game control standpoint with long sustained drives, what that tends to do sometimes as a player and as a coaching staff, you kind of panic because you're kind of uncertain of how many opportunities you're going to get. And that's when you see mistakes happen. And we all know, like what Coach Sanger's always preached back in the day, there's two bad things that can happen when you throw the ball. And I think I just got a feeling that I kind of envision Hunter Bowers making a big play defensively against that Woodbury Central pass game. He's kind of a big play athlete, and I think that may end up being the difference, especially like you said, if East Buck can control the game from an offensive standpoint and kind of put Woodbury Central in a mode where they're trying to, score. I always say, like, when you're trying to score 5 points coming down the court in basketball, and that can't happen. Usually mistakes happen when you're panicking.
I actually remember last year against Grundy, Grundy got up 2 scores on him right away and standing in the back end zone watching the game. And I'm like, they were down by a couple scores and all they did was throw it long. Like, they did not just keep playing their game, run their offense. They just started, we got to score immediately. And that sometimes puts you in a weird spot. So, Brent, what's the computer saying about East Buck and Woodbury?
Headline number is Woodbury Central by 8. One note is East Buchanan had a 46-0 loss to Starmont in week 4, where perhaps they didn't have their full strength available. If you do a model based on the last 5 games only, you have Woodbury Central as a 1-point favorite. So now you're in coin flip territory.
Yeah, I think Brady put it really well, Kevin's son Brady. We're talking about how we beat Starmont 49-10, and it could have been worse. But then Starmont beat East Buck, but East Buck beat St. Ansgar, who beat us by quite a bit. But he said, imagine 2011 and 2012. 2011 at West Hancock, we had Zach and Chris Schlugger, the inside-outside duo. And in 2012, Zach had graduated, and we had Chris up the middle. We had some good running backs, but they weren't Zach Schlugger. And he goes, they're just completely different teams. That was East Buck with and without their 2 studs. Just very different teams. So yeah, I like that week 5 on. That's literally a coin flip game. So that could be a good game. I wish I could say
that's the way a semifinal should be.
Yep. All right, let's get to the game that obviously we are vested in. And I always throw this out there. We are homers. We're not going to ever pick against West Hancock unless it's like a colossal mismatch and we're just being realistic. But odds are not going to pick against West Hancock for any reason. So Madrid people, don't throw this on your imaginary bulletin board that doesn't exist anymore. I want to talk about Madrid's history because this is 2 small school powerhouses going at it, and this will be the 3rd matchup between the 2 schools. Madrid has now been in the playoffs 29 times. They have a 52-27 playoff record. With Coach Randy Hinkle, they won a state title in 1991. They were state runner-ups in 90, 93, 95, 98, 99, 2003, 2010. And I counted up their losses. I looked at the scores. They lost those title games, 7 title games, by 20, 14, 2, 6, 3, 27, and 9. So they were a touchdown or so away from having 4 titles, just like West Hancock does in their school history. They also made the semifinals in 94, 97, 04, 07, 08, 09, 11, and now 2023. I want to highlight that 2011 season for Madrid. That was the year they played West Hancock in the Dome. We won that game 48-38. We had 412 yards rushing, 119 yards passing, 531 yards on only 44 offensive plays, 9.8 yards per run for us. Madrid had 368 rushing yards on 63 attempts for 5.8 yards per carry, 899 total yards in that game. Steve Perkins was the defensive coordinator then. His dad, Gene, was the defensive coordinator for West Hancock. That was Coach Bob Sanger's 300th win. He was going against Randy Hinkle. Randy went 314-80 in his career at Madrid and Loreauville. And the really cool part about this game is Coach Bob Sanger's son, Mark, is now the head coach at West Hancock, and Coach Randy Hinkle's son, Brock, is now the head coach at Madrid. So it's a second generation of those guys going at each other. Madrid also made the quarters in 92, 05, and 16. They made the second round in 2013 and 15, and they lost in the first round in 96, 2000, 01, 02, 12, 14, 21, and 22. So Coach Brock Hinkle started in 2019. He's 24-21. They had a couple lean years, and now they, like I said, they lost in the first round the last 2 years, and now they're 11-0 and playing in the semifinals. So what do you guys think about this matchup for West Hancock? 10 o'clock Thursday.
I think, Dan, you and I know the athletic director at Madrid fairly well. And if you want to elaborate on that, you can.
Yeah, Justin Johnson is the AD. Madrid's in our conference. Justin and I have been good friends since preschool. And Madrid and I-35 play each other in sports. And good dude. His wife, Mary, is also a classmate of mine. So it's fun to have this matchup. And then Steve Perkins, like I said earlier, he's still helping out at Madrid on the staff for Coach Hinkle.
A little background story. I think I don't think they'd mind me telling this. Justin called up Ryan, who was on the West Hancock coaching staff, and asked him, tell me everything I need to know about your West Hancock football team. And I think his response was, we spread it out and we throw it all over the place. So if they go by that scouting report, I think we're okay.
I think they know better.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. That's going to be a good game. You look at the rushing stats. Both teams want to run the ball primarily. I was working on our pregame stuff a little bit this afternoon, and I can't remember the percentage. I was thinking it was around 87% of the time Madrid runs the ball. Got a really mobile quarterback. He's put up a ton of yards. He's accounted for a ton of yards in the offense. He's second in touchdowns with 37 scored. He's third in rushing touchdowns with 25. He's third in rushing yards with 1,558, and he's second in total offensive yards. He's accounted for 2,257 yards of offense from the quarterback position. So I think defensively, that's going to be your focus. Probably is to take away his rushing and make him one-dimensional. You got to take away one of the two, and rushing is by far his strength in that matter. So I think you're looking at you try to take that away first, and then when they do go away from that, they have a back that's put up right close to 1,000 yards on the season. So I think defensively you're looking to take away the run first, and I think Madrid's probably thinking the same thing. So I think the team. It's going to come down to avoiding turnovers, and Jay and I have said this a lot over the course of the season. Special teams are a big deal, and especially in the Dome where you play a little faster, I think, than what you would on turf and outdoors. And I think special teams, a special teams play on either side of the ball could make the difference in the game. I think ball security is a big deal when you play a team like this, especially when most of these teams are running teams. So I think this will be a good game. I think it's going to be a closer game than some people think. Of course, like you said, Homer going to pick West Hancock to win it, or root for West Hancock to win it. But I really think this is a quality opponent that we're going to see in the semifinals.
Jay?
Yeah, I agree. And Preston Wicker, the quarterback, just looking at his numbers and to kind of pick back off of Kevin, he had 225 yards, or he was involved in 225 of the 277 total yards gained in that victory over ACGC on Friday night. So quarterback is going to be priority number one for that West Hancock defense as far as where they start the game plan at. And watching just a little bit of Madrid so far, it looks like they kind of similar to what Wapsie Valley does offensively. They spread you out and let that quarterback kind of get going. So I know Wapsie they gave it to the halfback more so than Madrid will, but Madrid's they've got a halfback in Nash Ramirez that's just under 900 yards rushing as well. So pretty diversified rushing attack. The thing I'm interested in doing later as the week progresses in preparation for this game is to watch Madrid defensively and what they're going to try to do against West Hancock. I know we can go back with some recent history to see what they did against us and how they lined up against our wing tee from a couple years ago. I think it was the COVID year. Was it the COVID year?
2020, we played them in everyone made the playoffs in 2020, but only if you got to the round of 16 did you get counted as a playoff qualifier. We played them in the second round after we beat Manson, and it was like 57-14 in Britt, that 2020 season.
Yeah, but
oh, good.
Yeah, I was going to say, just going back to Madrid, a lot of people, and I'll admit it, I was one of them. I wasn't sure what they were like, maybe if they were overrated or not, just watching the computer models. But you've seen them steadily climb up the BC Moore model, and they've done all you can do with the schedule in front of you is win the games that's on your schedule, and they've done that. And they've got some quality. Mount Air is not a bad football team. They've got some quality football, some quality wins on their resume. And then the last thing, it's always really cool to see. It seems like there's a ton of West Hancock connections around the state and Sanger connections. And so you got Coach Perkins and Johnson down there and that connection. And then like you talked about, Dan, just the fact that you got the legendary two head coaches that really put these programs on the map with Coach Hinkle and Coach Bob Sanger. And now their two sons have taken it over and are trying to reach even greater heights than what their dads were even able to do. So it's always fun to see them do that. The last thing I'll say for the West Hancock fans out there, get down there, support your team as much as possible, get down to the Dome. It's a special experience. I know some people are like, well, we've been down there 5 of the last 6 years. This isn't normal. You know what I mean? Like, don't get used to it. This is a great thing for our communities. Get down there and celebrate your community and enjoy the football game, take the day off of work and get down there and support the Eagles.
Yep, definitely. 10 a.m. on Thursday. This stat line stood out to me. Jace Fusen, getting the wrong button, 7 interceptions, and they have 16 total interceptions. That'll be interesting. Are they going to match this kid up with Buchanan? Are they going to match him up with Kellen? When we do have to pass the ball, looking at a matchup there, that'll be interesting. They have 16 interceptions. They have guys that are picking off passes, 6 fumble recoveries. And I don't know why this stood out to me. It might not mean anything. They only have 3 different players who have rushing touchdowns. So that makes me want to go to their schedule a little bit and see that they have a lot of close games. They beat Woodward by 1. First game of the season. I-35 beat Woodward at our homecoming by 2 points. Looking at just going down, they had a 1-point win against Mount Air, close one with Linville, close one with Earlham. Central Decatur, I can't say that's close, but it wasn't a 40-point blowout. Big win against North Mahaska and Wayne, IKM in the first round. They went from 26-7 to 42-0 against Central Decatur in their rematch, and a close one with ACGC. I only say that because, like, you look at West Hancock's schedule, and then you look at our stats, and we have 11 kids who have scored touchdowns. So that makes you go, do we have a lot of blowouts? That just kind of intrigued me a little bit. So
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that West Hancock's going to win by forfeit because on their schedule they're playing at 1 p.m. and we're going to be there at 10 for our game. So, no, I'm just teasing.
There was one person that stood out on their stats for me for another reason. They looked like the freshman backup quarterback.
Yeah,
might have some West Hancock bloodlines in him. So watch out for Chase Perkins, freshman backup. I know he's only 0-1 this year, but I believe that's Steve's boy, isn't it, Dan?
Yep, 5 carries for 50 yards. So that's Gene Perkins' grandson. That'll be a lot of fun.
10 yards a pop ain't bad at all.
That for a freshman especially.
Yep.
BC, what's the line looking like?
Yeah, so the
For this
headline
game?
is Madrid is undefeated. West Hancock has 1 loss. The computer's looking for West Hancock to win by 16.
Wow.
Okay, and Jay wanted me to show.
Yeah, we had
something
a guy send me a message about just how to get to the predictions from the home screen, Dan. So
yeah.
If you want to go to the home screen and just show him, when you're going on to, if you search BC Moore on Google, how to get here and see the matchup.
So you're on bcmoorerankings.com. Click on the current season of high school football. And then you want to go to the latest rankings. And then we're in Class A. Click on rankings. And then it gives you, okay, this team's at this spot. If you want to click on West Hancock to find their predictions for all their games, it's right here on the right side. That's probably not the greatest explanation, but you can go back and rewind it and listen to it again. So yeah, so 16-point favorite. Brent, how does these are neutral fields, so in the past there's like a 2-point for home field. Is there any thing with the neutral field that affects the numbers at all?
It's officially neutral for everybody except Cedar Falls. That would be counted as a home field advantage, but they're not in anymore.
Yep. I think you should find a way to account for travel time. So the longer you are from the dome, you get. Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be totally worth your time, right? So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, as we wrap this up here, again, the game is at Thursday at 10 o'clock, not 1 o'clock. So Madrid fans, you might want to get there a little before 1 o'clock, or you might just see the end of the game. We are 15-11 now in 26 quarterfinal games. The win against Wapsie was the 60th win in school history. That's a lot of playoff wins. Like 60 wins is just, that's pretty crazy. Mark Sanger is now 17-2 in playoff games since 2019. We talk about dome field advantage. These kids that are seniors, this will be their 5th dome game. For Mark, it'll be his 7th dome game as head coach. Big deal there. This is our 15th semifinal appearance. And the question that was asked in the car the other night with the 2 Sangers was, doesn't the 73 season count as a semifinal? Technically, yes, because there was only 4 teams in the playoffs, but the association counts that as a first-round game. So that game gets charted as a first-round game per se. So I just keep it consistent with what the association does. Otherwise, it gets muddy because they've made a lot of changes over the years. We are 9-5 in semifinal games. We are 8-13 in the dome in the history of Britt West Hancock. We didn't start off real hot in the dome over the years. It took till 1996 to finally win one, and now we've won the majority of our games we've played the last decade or so, so that's helped us out. The stat I really want to point out here, if we win, and again, we're hoping we do, if West Hancock wins on Thursday, it'll be and this number just blows my mind, it'll be our 10th state championship game in school history. That's just double-digit state championship game appearances. Here are the only other schools that have been in 10 or more state championship games: Harlan, Emmitsburg, Dowling, Bishop Heelan, Iowa City Regina, Bettendorf, Mount Vernon, Solon, and West Des Moines Valley. That's the entire list. So for us to hopefully get a win against Madrid and make it to the title game, that's a pretty big deal to be in 10 state championship games. I don't care what the record is. What?
When did they start playing state championship games in Iowa?
72.
72. So this year 51.
Mhm.
52, 51, 52. Yep.
Yeah. So you're looking at once every 10 years,
No, every 5 years.
5 years. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's just an insane stat, Dan.
And 9 of if we make it again, no bulletin board material. We're not saying we already got this game in the bag, but just for fun here, 9 if we make it, 9 of those appearances will have been since 1986. So 9 in the past. I'm 37, so I was born in 86. So that's like 1 in every 4 years since our second one in 86. Our first one was in 73, the second year of the playoff realm. So I just think that's pretty neat if we get there. Obviously play the game first and get more points than them. So any last minute things, fellas, before we got to send Kevin to bed?
Yeah, no. I'm on it before we go off the air. It's been a fun season, regardless of who wins. This has been a really fun season. There's nothing better than high school football in the state of Iowa. And regardless of, I don't care where you're from, I'll put our high school kids up against anybody, anywhere. It's just been a really, really fun season following some of these teams, and I think that the tradition that we have here in some of our schools, it's phenomenal to me. Like you said, any team could be making that many trips to the finals. It's fun, and it's fun to do this. Again, I want to thank BC for his work, because I know he says he doesn't put a lot of time in it, but I know he probably puts in more than what he really wants to admit. And we follow him a lot, and basketball season's rolling around. Put those West Hancock teams up near the top of those rankings, BC.
And Brent, I'm happy and also a little upset with you right now. I was just digging through some of your stuff. I just wrote a book about the history of West Hancock Britt football. And then you added some scores in from like Clarion and Hampton and Algona recently, and I didn't know that. And so I just found on your site like 20 more scores from like 1904 to 1922. I've tallied up how many points we've scored in program history, and I have every week I update that, and now I'm like, oh crap, I have to go back and redo like 960 game. I know I can just go to the games and add the totals up from there, but it's always fun to find more history. So the nerd in me is pretty excited about that. So
let me just say, it'd be great to have a second set of eyes on those. Sometimes those early era games, it could be a town team, it could be the high school team. It's a best effort, and I need a second person to have an opinion.
Yeah.
How's that pay?
What's that?
How does that pay, BC?
Oh, this is all free hobby stuff. I enjoy it. As you said, Iowa high school is the best, and clearly this is another product of that.
Jay, anything else from your
end? I'd want to thank Brent. Hopefully we're able to do some future podcasts with him, and always fun to see the man behind the computer, and what he's come up with is kind of just amazing that we have that resource in the state of Iowa to go to. It's just a neat tool that a lot of other states don't have. And then like I'll echo what Kevin said. There's nothing like a small town in the fall on a Friday night. Especially the small towns come together, they rally around their high schools and their programs, and it's just a special way to bring the community together. And looking forward to seeing all the red and white down in Cedar Falls at 10 a.m. on Thursday.
You bet. And hey, coming up on the podcast here Wednesday night, I'm recording with Lori Tlach. Also, she's Lori Kelly now. And then Amber Hejlik a couple weeks after that, state title winning quarterbacks, Scott VanDusseldorp and Gerardo Ibarra. So I got a pretty good lineup coming up in the next couple of months. So thank you guys as always. I appreciate it. And like Jay said, don't just go, it's the semis, I'll just wait till the finals. Just get to the game. I know you can watch it on TV, you can listen to the radio, but nothing beats being there in person and supporting the boys and filling up the dome. I always love those stories of, man, there was more people at that Class A game than that 4A game. It's like the last one out of town turns the lights off type of mentality. So here we go. Go Eagles.